Clean money and substantial amount of transparency is what the finance minister believes the electoral bonds will bring into political funding. To discuss this further, we're now joined by S Y Quraishi, the former chief election commissioner, BJP spokesperson Narendra, Taneja, and Milan, Vaishnav, senior fellow and director South Asia at Carnegie Endowment. He's been following the story very closely and, of course, is the author of a book that has studied the influence of money in Indian politics. Mr. Quraishi, if I could start by asking you, sir, and let me quote to you what the former CEC, Mr. Zaidi, said in an interview in July. He said the recent amendments to the Representation of People's Act have affected transparency in political funding. We have written to the government that this way parties will never file contributions received through electoral bonds, and if the Election Commission will never get to know of that contribution, then how will people get to know about the contribution? What, to your mind, sir, is the problem that electoral bonds, as they have now been notified, present to political funding in India? Does this make things better, or does this bring in substantial transparency, as the finance minister just said?
Well, it makes things slightly better in the sense that instead of paying cash, they will be paying bond, and at least the bond will be traceable to some party and some donor. But that will only be known to the bank and the government. But the most here the transparency of the funder has been protected, which is what we wanted to expose.
Yes.
Because there is always a quid pro quo between the donor and the political parties. Now we will never get to know, as it is 70% of the donations so far were cash donations, and we knew nothing about them. Only 30% were known to us, because everything above 20,000 was disclosed to us, but not anymore. Now the bond will be totally anonymous, and the secondly removal of the limit from 7.5% to indefinite, that particularly is very dangerous. That means political parties will be run by the corporates, and some corporates will exist. Yeah, some corporates will exist only to run politics.
So how does it make things better then, Mr. Quraishi? So I'm trying to understand then, how does it make things better? If you're saying that there is now more anonymity, it's only that we're doing away with cash and we're bringing it through the banking system, but anonymity remains, and the fact is that that 7.5% cap on political donations has been struck down. So how does it make things better?
Yes, only to the extent that instead of black money, it will be white money, which will be traceable to the donor and the donee. To that extent, the cash transaction will be replaced by bank transaction. But what is the amount which was exchanged between the corporate and the party, which was more important to be known? Now, keeping the secrecy of the donor, where we suspect quid pro quo. Now, somebody gives 20 crores and gets contracts and licenses in return. That is what people want to know. So I think that Finance Minister himself admitted that only partially it has been addressed. The other half, which has not been addressed, is the main question.
So let's take that forward. And Milan, I know that you've been writing on this issue, and then I'll come to Narendra, Taneja to respond to the comments that have come in from our panel. Milan, the question of anonymity remains, and the question that's being raised here by the former chief election commissioner is that if the donor remains anonymous, then how do we not know that this is going to perpetuate the system of crony capitalism that has plagued the Indian system?
We have no assurance of that. I mean, I find it very ironic that the government and the finance minister reiterated this today, is announcing this measure under the guise of transparency. And the question I would ask is, transparency to whom? Any member of the general public, it could be media, it could be the voter, it could be civil society, will have no idea which corporation is giving to the party, and which party is getting money from which corporate. So I'm a little bit confused about why the word transparency has even been uttered, because this actually has nothing to do with transparency. Now, as Dr. Quraishi said, it has something to do with minimizing the use of cash for elections. But that should not be conflated with public transparency.
Okay, Narendra, Taneja, you've heard what the former chief election commissioner has to say. You also just heard what Milan says, that you've actually moved to a more opaque system and not a more transparent system. Yes, cash perhaps has been done away with, but you're putting a much more opaque system in place. Why the anonymity of the donor? Explain that.
First of all,
in my view and in view of a lot of other people, because the discussion has taken place over the past 1 year, including with various political parties, this is a revolutionary move. I mean, aimed only at one thing, that is transparency, and also to clean election financing. That's the whole idea. And in terms of, that why don't you go on the rooftop and disclose the name of the, donor? Look, here we are not talking, so you only
not the rooftop, sir. Go to the election commission. Why do people not have the right to know? Why do people not have the right to know? Why does the election commission not have the right to know?
You see, the point here is, first of all political parties will have to report to the election commission how much money they've got in terms of bonds. They have to report that. There is a provision for that.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that, those who really want to disclose...
Yes, but we don't know who is funding them. We don't know who is funding them.
No, but suppose for the sake of discussion, Shireen, me or you, we are donating 1,000 rupees. Who is interested to know in 1,000 rupees?
Yeah.
So basically, all those who are donating only 10,000 rupees. So why are we focusing only on body corporates and crony capitalism? The problem is that here we are trying to basically bring a new culture, an absolutely new culture.
Okay.
It's a first major step in that direction. We have to take it with that. If we have this thing in mind, oh, this is basically going to be, you give me this much and this is what I'm going to give you back. So first of all, we don't live in the license Raj anymore. And the second point is that what about those people who want to donate only 1,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees? And in terms of, you see, the problem is that the entire system is such. Hundreds of employees in banks would know about it. Hundreds of other people would know about it. Hundreds of people in the company which are donating would know about it. Balance sheets of at least the big corporates are out there for you to, carry out your own scrutiny.
But they don't have to report that any longer, sir. So, the amendments have been made so they don't have to disclose that as part of their P&L, sir.
No, this will be in the balance sheet. People who know, there are people who know how to read balance sheets, they would know. The problem here is that, even if you look at, for the sake of discussion, even Communist Party Marxists, look at how much money they get. Sometimes you really wonder why people are donating to CPM, where there's no chance of them coming to power in New Delhi for decades to come, if not centuries. But people still do. Why? So the question is that if a corporate, let's say, is giving 100 crore rupees to party N, party M is going to say, oh, you gave them 100, you got to give me 150, because most likely I'm going to win. Look what I've done in Pune. So next time I'm coming to power, I've succeeded in doing that in Pune. So give me 150 crore. So it will lead to completely chaos. So at the same time, no system is perfect. If you have better ideas, please. Come up with a suggestion. We have discussed that 1 year.
Let me put that question. Well, sir, various political parties will probably be on the same side of this argument. Neither you nor the Congress party wanted political parties to come under the purview of the Right to Information Act. So all political parties come together on issues related to political funding. But Mr. Quraishi, since Mr. Taneja asked for a better mechanism and for a better system, and I know that you've been suggesting a better way forward, or at least you believe that that's a better way forward, sir. Why don't you share that with us?
Yes, of course. That's why I volunteered. The better way is, if you want to save the anonymity of the donor, and the logic is given is that if a donor gives to one party, the other party is in power and they punish you for donating to the wrong party. Now, to protect that's why they want to protect their identity. Why don't you do away with this system altogether? Set up a national electoral fund where every company will donate very transparently, and that money will be allocated to the political parties based on their performance on a very objective criteria, a kind of system which exists in many good democracies.
Okay, Milan, Vaishnav, this has now been notified. What is it that you would be most concerned about?
I'm
Taneja, I'm just coming back to you, sir.
That this is going to be seen as a big win for public transparency, which it is not, and it's going to actually take the pressure off this government and future governments to take real action. I mean, real action would be, let's say that any political donation, whether it's 1 rupee, 10,000 rupees, 10,000 crores, should be made public, and let the voter use that information. I don't understand why the government feels it's its concern to protect corporate secrecy. I mean, why do corporates want that secrecy? Because they're afraid of the arbitrary, discretionary ways in which government uses power. So fix the independence of the CBI, fix the vestiges of the license Raj, make it easy to do business and not have arbitrary power exercised by bureaucrats and politicians. That's really at the heart of this problem. And once you get that, corporates will be happy to give above board. But we're not dealing with those issues. We're instead trying to legitimize opacity, which I think is the wrong way to move.
Why would the government want to support corporate secrecy? Why is the government trying to legitimize a more opaque system? Narendra, Taneja, your response, please.
Yeah, first of all, you see what Mr. Quraishi is suggesting is a completely different thing that probably works better in developed societies in Europe, in Scandinavia and other parts of the world. But here is not question of, your problem is you're focusing only on corporates. What about that person who wants to donate only 1,000? And the idea is basically this will lead to a number of other players.
Sir, the majority of the funding is coming from there, sir. Let's be clear, Mr. Taneja. Let's not split hairs, sir. That's where a majority of the money is coming from, sir.
No, but a number of companies, they just want to donate money for this purpose or want to donate to a particular political party because they believe in the ideology, they like the ideology of that party, but they may be donating, maybe body corporate, but a small one, maybe 30 crore, maybe 50 crore company, maybe 60 crore company. Why are you thinking only in terms of 3 or 4 large companies? That's the problem is that we are allowing ourselves basically to be biased because we think there are 3 or 4 companies which are always taken more interest in political parties, and that's why we don't want any kind of reforms. So we are ready to throw reforms into the Indian Ocean just because our problem is that we have this idea in our mind, and and we will completely kind of conditioned by that. What Mr. Quraishi is suggesting is no improvement on this system. He's suggesting a completely different system altogether. We can have a debate on that, but here
Mr.
right
Quraishi,
now the debate with you
Mr.
is
Quraishi, let me get you to respond to. Let me get you to respond to the question that has come in there from Narendra Taneja, that this is going to be the start of bringing in a new culture. It may not be the perfect system, but it's certainly better than the system that we've currently learned to live with. He's calling it a revolution. It may not necessarily be a revolution, but does it initiate the start of a new culture in political funding in India, Mr. Quraishi?
The finance minister in his budget speech, he started very promisingly. He said for the last 70 years, we never had transparency of political funding, and we have failed to achieve that. And he said without political transparency of political funding, free and fair elections are not possible. Now, with that, he started with that promise. And what have we got? What have we landed in? And therefore, and secondly, what I'm proposing is not, it is different, but it is not revolutionary. Already there are some private trusts. Tata, for instance, is a trust, so that they donate to different parties, and it is in public domain. So if there is a national electoral fund, and where the parties donate, there may be concession, the tax relief, and from there the money is distributed to the political parties based on their actual performance. And in fact, my formulation was for every vote, if you get 100 rupees, you end up getting almost as much as they are collecting from fair and foul means.
Okay, Mr. Taneja, I'll give you the final say. Milan, quick wrap-up comments from you.
I mean, just consider this example, Shireen. A mining company in Goa decides it wants to bankroll a political party, and so it funds anonymously through the electoral bond route the Congress Party. And the Congress Party comes to power and decides to do a bunch of favors through legislation and policy for that mining company. Not you, not me, not Mr. Taneja, not Dr. Quraishi. None of us will know that any of this has transpired because it's been completely under the table.
Well, all right, that's food for thought there. Narendra Taneja, the final word to you, sir. You're not willing to take on board any of the concerns that have been raised by a former chief election commissioner and by somebody who's been tracking this issue for years.
Mr. Quraishi basically changed the track. He talked of completely second time different thing, third time completely different thing. But with all due respect to him, you see the point here is that we are forgetting one thing. with this new system, transparent system, people in small towns and cities, they're going to come up to the State Bank of India and may want to donate 1,000, 10,000. This is a revolution, Shireen.
Okay.
Number two is smaller companies in Bhubaneswar, in Patna, in Firozabad, Aurangabad, they are going to come forward and now donate. So this is going to be a new culture altogether. Appreciate that. Please don't allow yourself just to be punished because you have certain ideas in mind based on your experience on newspaper headlines of the past 20 years. It's a new culture. Please welcome it.